Okay, good morning again, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of the CLS Training Barbados Essential Sessions. Today, this is our agenda for today. What I will do is give a brief outline of today's proceedings and recap what we did on Monday, as well as do an introduction to participants. And then we will get into the nitty-gritty of the practical session. So I hope everyone had a very safe and wonderful Independence Day yesterday. And we're now a republic, so well done. So last session, we dealt with SRFs, the library active tracking, and we learned the importance of the SRFs and how the service request forms really indicate exactly what is being requested, whether it be storage or transport. And today's session, in essence, I'll let WFP explain more in detail, but in essence, it'll be a recap of the last 3 days and being able to put into practice what we learned over the past 3 days. So we'll do a practical session followed by the Q&A and adjournment. Okay, I will do the roll call as it was seen. So as per usual, I'll call out the list that I have, and if persons can indicate from who's there from their respective agencies, that'll be fantastic. So I'm going to start with the Hub Roman Catholic Church. Are you there?
Hi, yes, Cheryl, I'm here.
Okay, great. I have the Rotary Club of Barbados. Rotary Club of Barbados. Okay. The Optimists Clubs of Barbados.
Good morning, Optimist Margaret here. I am not seeing Karen as yet, but I know she'll be joining.
Okay, great. Lions Club International.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I believe that I am on the Lions Club International. Is that April?
I'm seeing a name on the Leo Club International. Is that?
Oh, yes, please. My apologies. I thought we were all under one second.
Okay. All right. Well, anyone else from the Leo Club International?
Sorry, ma'am.
Good morning. Olivia.
Morning. Okay, great. The Anglican Church. Anyone from the Anglican Church?
No, she's not on, Kevin.
Okay. The Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Tabitha and Judy are on, and Pastor Hand sends his apologies. He's overseas.
Okay, great. The Barbados Association of Non-Governmental Organizations.
Good morning, Ann Harding.
Okay, great.
I'm here as well, Marcia Brandon.
Okay. Barbados Red Cross Society. Anyone from Barbados Red Cross Society?
I'm seeing David locked down. I'm not sure what's happening.
Ah, okay.
Mhm.
Salvation Army.
Good morning, Joan Ferguson from the Salvation Army.
Okay. What about the BDF?
Hi, good morning. It's Chief Awesome calling from Barbados Coast Guard. I'm not seeing any of my other colleagues as yet, but I'm sure you could appreciate that they still have a few administrative matters to attend to. I'm sure they'll be joining sometime later.
Okay. Thanks for your attendance. We have the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs.
Hi, good morning. This is Ms. Kamabachi here. We have Shonal Allen here as well.
Okay. Thanks for being on the call. Ministry of Education, Technology, and Vocational Training. Anyone from the Ministry of Education? Okay. Ministry of Labor and Social Partnerships and Relations.
We're here, Kevin.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Kiwanis Clubs of Barbados.
No Kiwanis.
Okay. All right. So that concludes my list. Rhonda, anything you want to state, or should I go straight to the BFP?
You can go straight on it, but just let them know at the end, because we are trying to have the recordings placed on the YouTube channel. So it would just confirm that when they'll be available before IT officer, so I can let persons know at the end. So you can go, yes. So that's just it.
Okay. Great.
Okay. Someone said DEM is present.
Ah, all right. Got it. Okay. So up next on our agenda is the practical and exercise session, where participants will complete a practical exercise. So facilitators for this would be WFP, as here in the agenda. So I'm going to hand over now to my colleagues at WFP for this agenda item. WFP.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the final session of this part of the training. And as Kevin has already pointed out, this is a practical sort of session of some exercises that relate directly to what we've covered so far. I think that the majority of the people on the chat are already registered, but if you haven't registered, then you might find that it's not so easy to follow along with this. I'm not sure if we'll be able to register you at the same time as we're doing the exercises, but one of the others might be able to pick up and cover for anyone who hasn't registered. So you can still follow along, but it's really the value will be in doing the exercise rather than kind of following along. Kevin, is screen sharing enabled?
Yep, now it's free.
Okay, all right. Let me share screen too. So for those of you that are registered and logged in, then you'll be able to find this file in the library, which you can download and have on your desktop or at hand. For everyone else, this is what you will see. So what we'll do is we will look first at the template, the actual pros and cons of using it, and hopefully you'll get a chance to see some of the issues that would typically be faced in a emergency response where you're getting numbers of unsolicited goods coming in. And as some of you already rightly identified, when you get a container of donated goods from Miami and you don't really know who donated it or what's in it or what the values are, how do you capture that in a form that makes it useful for people to use? So these are some of the things that you can look at, have a think about, and see if you can come up with solutions. It's a working exercise, so there is no right and wrong. If you get stuck or if there are questions, then by all means, you can either raise them in the chat or just speak out, and we'll go over them as you go. So the first thing you'll need to do is part one is to download a template. And with the template, you can see that the first exercises, we assume that we have a nominal container turn up, UX 292873, and it's got these items in it. So what I'd like you to do is, under your own organization's name as the owner, you can put these items into any of the warehouses that already exist within the training system. So DEM has one, Red Cross has one, CDEMA has one, we have one. Well, actually, CDEMA has two because they still have the RLH, which you're welcome to use. And then see if you can fill in the template. You don't need to fill it in for all 20, but perhaps if you pick, say, 4 or 5 line items, and see how you go entering those into the template, and what sort of problems that you encounter, and the solutions that you've come up with. And then we'll review and we'll have a bit of a discussion afterwards, and we'll upload a few of them so that there is something in the system for you to continue with the next part on. So I'll leave you to go ahead and do that. As I say, we're at hand for anyone who has any issues. If anyone wants to register at the same time while we're going on with this, you're more than welcome. If anyone wants a reminder of where you can find this template, then it is available in the stock window, which is the first window. And you can find a blank template here. One of the questions that was raised, well, there were some questions raised about whether you can use an old template or a new template for doing uploading. The recommendation is to use the new template, a new template every time, because in an emergency situation, as facilities such as shelters get opened, or as new warehouses get opened, those will be added into the system. So the template automatically picks up the facilities that are in the system. If you use an old template, then you might find that the warehouse you're actually trying to find isn't listed inside the template, which will cause you some head scratching and might cause you to call up someone and ask what to do. So hopefully with this exercise, you'll see a couple of things. You'll see the problems of dealing with unsolicited goods, and you'll figure out ways of dealing with it and getting around it, and understand more about both the pros and the cons of the template that we're using. Does anyone have any questions at this point in time, or are you happy to go ahead and try that on your own?
Has the template changed since we started this course in the test system?
I don't think so, no. All of the warehouses were pre-existing. So you can, I'll put the sort of guideline up. You can work directly off this if you wish, or actually I'll try and make it a little easier for you. Or you can download it, and that will give you the ability to do a little bit of cut and paste, which might make life a little easier. So as you can see from the list straight away, there's very little guidance for you in filling out the your template, because we've already said that it's ideal to have the units of measure, the values, and other information, so that once you start the dispatching process, or the process of sending it from one point to another, you can report back on value, quantities moved, what sector the items were, etc., etc., etc. But it is very typical, even on commercial waybills, to have very limited information. In principle, there should always be a comprehensive packing list, but as time and pressure decrease, the paperwork tends to get increasingly minimal as well. So that's where, if we want a system that's going to operate, we need to come up with ways of fixing it on the ground. And as was pointed out by some of the others, is that when we're in the middle of an emergency, time is probably the most precious commodity we have. So quick and easy ways of working with data and getting it in are going to be a lifesaver. If you have to, or if you try and go for the ultimate detail and go back to the original supplier and figure out how much something costs, well, one, that won't be possible if it's a donation, because you don't even know who the original supplier was. And two, it will just take a huge amount of time. So I think you can probably already figure out what the pros and cons of that approach are. But anyway, we'll leave it over to you. We'll give you about, sorry, 9:27. Let's go until maybe, we'll give you 20 minutes and see how you go with that. If anyone needs more time, we can always extend. Don't see any questions in the chat or any hands up. So over to you. See what you can do with the list. You don't, by the way, you don't need to try and do the upload. Just fill in your templates on your local machines.
Excuse me, Jeff, Rhonda, you have, Tabitha has her hand raised, and I think you may need to put the link back into the chat so persons could just access it quickly.
The link for the
training, to link you directly to this URL here. This training session. Just for ease for some persons if they haven't saved it.
And yes, this is the file that you want here.
Right. And Tabitha has a question.
Yep, sure. Go ahead, Tabitha.
Good morning. I'm not seeing the option when I press the drop box for owner agency. I'm not seeing anything, any options in.
Okay, so problem number one. Well spotted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you share your screen and we'll go over it. Where are we? So you can go ahead and share your screen, Tabitha, and we'll have a bit of a talk about it. Okay, I guess everyone can see Tabitha's screen, yeah? Okay, I'll take the silence as a yes. So yeah. Go ahead, Tabitha.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, can anyone tell me what the likely issue might be here? Anyone have much experience with Excel?
The column may be hidden.
Repeat the question, please.
Does anybody understand what the issue is here with what Tabitha's doing?
The column may be hidden.
Okay.
There's a drop down.
row, she has to go down to the next row and then she will see her drop down button comes up there.
Correct. Okay, thanks very much, Judy.
Thank you.
So what the issue is that this is an Excel table, and because it's an Excel table, let me download one and show you. So this is an Excel table, and at the top of an Excel table, it defaults to putting in filters. So what these are not drop-down selectable lists. These are filters. And because there's nothing in the column at this point in time, then there's nothing to filter. So until you actually populate the rows with records or data, then you won't be able to use the filter column. Is that a question? Sorry.
I think Judy needs to her microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so as Judy pointed out, the way Excel works is that you actually need focus in the cell that you're about to enter data into to be able to use the drop-down boxes. It's a little quirk of Excel, if you like, that it doesn't actually, well, it keeps the system fairly clean and uncluttered, but you can't actually see a drop-down until such time as there is focus inside the cell that you're going to use. So then you should be able to see that all your owner agencies, etc., are there. Country, of course, you can't fill in, which is why it's grayed out. But all the rest you should be able to add data into. Okay. But thanks for bringing that up, Tabitha, because it's not really, it's not a bug or anything. It's just an Excel feature that does catch people out. Any other questions at this point?
I think this is Marcia Brandon. I think I'm having an issue with clicking on the drop downs because right now I can't seem to manipulate country, but I don't know if it's because of my system.
You can't what? Sorry, you can't click on country.
I can't. Yeah, I was able to do owner agency, but when I click on country, nothing is coming up. Well, yeah. What's coming up is a color, an instruction for a color thing. So I'm not sure. Do I?
Can you still see my screen?
You cannot type in that box.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So if you, at the top of the template, there are instructions
Right.
and guides, but number 3, it says for the country, you can't fill it in, which is why it's grayed out.
Ah, thank you. Didn't see that.
That's okay. And Shirish asked about how to change from metric to imperial. So the system itself only works in metric. You can upload imperial, but the system will automatically change it to metric once it's uploaded, because we need to have one homogeneous system. So that requires you to do a little bit of conversion if you want to, if you have mixed goods, which means that you can select either imperial or metric, but not both. And you change that by changing this. My strong recommendation is you just stay with metric. I know that's a little bit of a problem here, or throughout the Caribbean, really, where there is a strong influence from both the imperial side and the metric side. So yeah, it's a bit of a limitation. No real easy answers to that one. And to get it wrong can actually have fairly big consequences on the reporting and the allocation of transport. Because if you're thinking in grams and someone else is thinking in pounds, and you put on a truck for what you think is a relatively limited quantity of rice, and suddenly you figure out there's pallets of the stuff, that can cause a bit of concern. But yeah, it is something to watch. And again, thanks for bringing that up. It's another one of the things in the practical exercise. You'll actually see that we have purposely put in mixed units of measure.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question and
Yep.
and also advice. Generally when I want to change, I just put in grams to pounds to grams calculator in the system and in Google, and I get a calculator and it gives me the amount that I want. What I'm asking about is the location storage facility name. When I use the drop down button, it is empty.
Okay. So I'm sorry, who was it raised the question?
Judy.
Okay, so Judy, it's the same issue. If you see my screen there, this is not a drop-down button, this is a filter. So if you want the drop-down, you need to put focus with your mouse by clicking inside the cell that you want to fill in, and then you'll get the drop-down box to the right of it.
Good morning, that's not working.
That's not working?
Yes, I'm having the same issue as Judy. No matter which
I am
field.
I'm in the right field, but nothing is in it.
Okay, how about I'll stop sharing and you can bring your screen up. Let's have a look.
Can somebody who's having the same issue do it, because I'm using two systems?
I have the same issue.
So do I.
Right. So if you can share your screen, because I can't. I'm using two systems.
Right, I can only see this pink box.
Yes, I think I'm having the same issue as well.
So hang on a second, let me have a quick look here. I have a feeling I know what the answer is, but let me just check.
There's a note at the top of the template which says that we should only download after we've registered our storage facility in CLS. So is it possible that we need to, for the owner agency that we're representing, add a storage facility in the CLS before we download the template, or that's just a question?
I think that I'm not seeing this issue, and it's because I am registered as a administrator. So yes, it's because there is no facility associated with your particular organization. So my apologies for that. So what I suggest you do is either use WFP or CDEMA as the owner agency.
Okay, thank you.
And that'll overcome that for the purposes of this exercise.
So when you click on it, the drop box will open, or do we need to write that in?
No, you'll be able to select. So for instead of your actual organization, you can change your owner organization, or your owner agency to either WFP or CDEMA, and that will give you
No,
more.
I tried that. That's not working for me. I tried CDEMA, but I still get a blank, an empty drop down.
Yeah.
In here.
So did I. So did I.
Okay, yes, it's because you've all got limited permissions, which I didn't think of. Let me see who else is on there.
No, we did think about it, Jeff. We discussed about upgrading everyone temporarily just for the exercise. I don't know if So is online and able to do that.
Yeah, I don't think he is.
Let me try and call him.
Yeah, it would be quite an exercise to bring everyone
I
up.
think the same thing is happening for the program, for the item description.
Yeah, we'll have a bit of a attempt at doing this. Anyway, in the meantime, what you can do, you can still fill in. You should still be able to fill in the sector and the item descriptions and the units, unless I'm completely off. So perhaps you could try that while we try and figure out what we can do to fix this. Our options are we either elevate your permissions or we add everyone to each of the warehouses.
So I was doing bottled water, so I was wondering which sector that would fall under.
Wash.
Okay. Any
Wash?
stabs at what you think it should be?
It could be wash or food security.
Yeah.
So who mentioned wash? Sorry, I can't see the.
I said wash, Marcia.
Okay.
Also, my other colleague said wash too.
Okay, and wash is. Does everyone know what wash is?
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
To be fair to everyone, Jeff, we mentioned there was logistic sectors by the UN, but we didn't put in the link to where they could see those sectors.
You will find that there is a lot of ambiguity in what we call the sectors, which are actually broad categories. So wash is water, sanitation, and hygiene.
No. Sorry, probably listening.
I use wash for the boxes of Clorox.
I have a query from Margaret Chapman Farley. She is having an issue logging on. She had permission before, but then this morning she received, when she tried, she got a note saying permission pending, approval pending.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, that's correct. I'm not sure if Margaret's there. I'm not. Oh, yes. So Margaret, you registered on the live site. The site you need to register on is the training site, which is the one which we sent the link to in the chat.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm not sure who approved it, but that's a live site. We can't have people in there at this point in time.
I have a question. In the template, there's a second tab called glossary, and it lists the different types of item descriptions. I was wondering if it was possible to associate a sector with each of those.
No, that's a legacy thing. It's no longer functional. We did try and work with a glossary at one point in time, but it caused all kinds of problems with validation. So that's kind of should be taken out, really. You can use the, if you find items in there that match the items that you think would be useful, then by all means use it, but it'll be a cut and paste type affair.
Was the problem with the glossary that it quickly became obsolete because items weren't there?
Not so much that, but by putting it in, then it becomes a drop-down list, which is again to the right of each cell. And when you do the drop-down, you can potentially get 1,000-line items, which is fairly painful to navigate through. And while you could type and automatically fill as you go, you would then have to have a pretty good idea of what the item was you were going to start typing on. So it was easier and less time consuming to just let users put in what they needed to and then do any corrections later. So there's been a subsequent, it's an intermediate step, but what happens is it's one of the shortfalls of the system is that the system is designed, this part of the system, phase one of the system, the emergency logistics module, is exactly that. It's an emergency logistics module. It's designed to get things moving as fast as possible. And so there is very little in the way of the normal preceding processes that would follow. So sourcing, procurement, needs assessments, needs matching. If we were to do all of that, there would be a need for a catalog, and this part of the system is not set up to have a catalog. The second phase, which will be released or start to roll out next year, does have a catalog based in it. And so the catalog allows a lot more power, but it also comes with the need for more user interaction and a better understanding of how the full logistics system works, or the full logistics process works. So this is designed to help people who have limited resources and people with limited training to get working and be effective quickly, with the known limitations that there are problems with things like this, coming up with a list and all the rest of it. There is, in St. Vincent, they did come up with a system which bridges that gap a little bit, which was to develop a Kobo form, which allows a rapid stock take, and then that data can be dropped out into an Excel sheet and imported into the template. But that's far from ideal, as you can imagine. That we have multiple systems going then, and it's just as prone to error as the system that we have at the moment. So already you're seeing that there are weaknesses with the system. It's just one of the things of using Excel. Excel allows you to be very flexible to make the entries that you need to record new goods as they come in and things that you haven't seen before, but it does introduce the strong likelihood of a higher rate of error than you would get if you had followed a pure sourcing process, which started with the procurement order, prices were known, weights and measures were known, the original supplier was known, et cetera, and which would just flow through to not having to do this because it would already be in the system. So yeah, that's the pros and the cons of an emergency logistics system, really.
Hi, I got a question about the unit weight and the unit volume.
Yep.
Oh, not, well, I guess the unit weight, I should read the instructions, maybe it tells me there. The unit weight, I'm just looking to see, I don't see a thing that tells me in the description, in the instructions, but yeah, so if it's, we'll just say unit volume, if it's 3.78 liters, where do I put the unit of measure as liters?
So we don't have that set up, but typically the smallest unit would be the column that you would choose. But yeah, we're actually only working in kilograms at the moment.
And liters. Okay, so if I put 3.78, then it's assumed that that's liters.
If you've got it set to metric, yes, whatever you put in there will be converted to, well, it'll be converted to kilograms.
Okay, so unit weight is always kilograms and unit volume is always liters. Is when I've got
No, unit volume is meters, cubic meters.
Oh, that's a hard one.
Yeah, it can be. It's just, and it's possible to change all of that, but it's just that cubic meters is normally the unit of measure for aircraft. And so that's the one we tend to work with most.
I can appreciate that. You're having to protect everything within a certain space.
Yeah, so actually what happens is the real reason why we bother with the unit weights and the unit volumes is not because we're working with road transport and sea transport, which in the last 2 responses was all we used, except for the very early days. But when we start working with airframes, helicopters, and fixed wing, then weight and volume become critical. So we need to sort of make as much effort as we can to get that right. Well, it can be done right at the dispatch point, but it's more time consuming to do that. So it's always better to try and take the pain at the point where it's least painful, if you like, rather than leave it for the guy on the ground who's running around trying to get cargo on board the plane to solve retroactively.
Well, I'm just trying to use this ball of Clorox that I had nearby as a sample, you know, to put in as an example. I got a problem because it tells me that it's it's 1 gallon, so it's 3.78 kilograms, but it doesn't tell me how much it weighs or what the square meters is of it or anything like that. So I guess I could just get out a ruler and measure it, huh?
Well, there you go. So now you're hitting exactly the issue that would face someone on the ground who's dealing with a container load of unsolicited goods, is that there is very little information, that it's mixed between imperial and metric system, dealing with fluid measures and solid measures. You're dealing with round containers or cylindrical containers and square containers or just loose items. And so what you are already seeing at this part of the exercise is that it's very, very difficult when you're given an absolute minimal amount of information to make sense of it. And so
it's important too, right? I mean, it's going to matter if I have to put it on an airplane or a boat.
That's dead right. So it matters when it goes on a aircraft, not so much when it goes on a ro-ro ship or on the back of a truck. But for airframes, it does matter, which is why we emphasize it at this stage, and why I think yourself actually noted that we should be putting this stuff in when we do the upload. And you're exactly right. It's better to do it now than later. But that said, it is possible to do an upload without filling in those units. And you saw that in the demonstration that Kevin did the other day, where he was retroactively having to enter some numbers. But again, you know, then you're putting the pressure onto the administrator or onto the people doing the dispatch. They have to guess. So who is better to guess? The people who own the items and are trying to upload them, or the people who are actually doing the dispatch and have more knowledge of the type of items they're dealing with? There is no right or wrong, except that, of course, the higher up the mountain you go, the skinnier the mountain gets. So it is better to try and put some effort in at the ground level, at the organizational level as you receive the goods, rather than leaving it to the dispatcher and the administrators. Because for those who continue with the extended course, you'll see that it is possible entirely for an approver who cannot understand what's being asked or can't make any sense of it, to send the request back to the requester and say, hey, we need more information on this.
I can understand what you're saying too about you wanting people to be able to put whatever they've got into the item description. I can see in the glossary, sorry to bring that one up again, but I can see bleach 780 mil in the glossary. So if I copy and paste that into the item description, But in the glossary, if it could also have, for bleach 780 mil, if it could have the unit weight, unit volume in there, that would help me.
Just for a quick reference, I mean, 1 kilo is 1 liter of water, and it's also 1 cubic centimeter as well, as a rough idea. And most liquids are very similar to water. The densities will change, they'll be more or less. But if you use like 1 kilo equals 1 liter, you're not going to go far wrong as a rule of thumb.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Is that water is a great example, really, because its weight matches its displacement, its volume. So, well, for all intents and purposes, it matches. And so you can extrapolate that out to other things that you'd be dealing with. So, for instance, oil is slightly lighter than water. Concrete is obviously considerably heavier than water, and everything in between. So water is actually a very useful benchmark. I use it all the time. A trap with for Anne and for everyone else, a trap with gallons is that whose gallons are you talking about? So the US gallon is quite different to a UK gallon.
It also says mils on the bottle, fortunately.
Yeah, it's well, in many cases, or in the majority of cases these days, you'll see both imperial and metric measures, which kind of indicate straight away what you're dealing with. So if you see a gallon saying that it's 3.4 liters, then you know straight away you're dealing with an American gallon. Whereas if you're dealing with 4.2, then it's a UK gallon.
And I'm guessing, just one further point on that, I'm guessing just by the column heading unit weight and unit volume, because you referred to smallest unit, which I put as bottle, that the unit weight refers to and the volume refers to the weight and volume of one bottle. So that then you put into the quantity, I put 2 in there. So you would multiply by the quantity. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
Yes, okay. that is exactly the logic. There are hacks that you can do, that we can do in the system, and that we allow and knowingly allow in the system, is that you can go down to the smallest possible unit of measure, or you can aggregate depending on what your organization's needs are. So for instance, if you distribute 1 bottle of water at a time, then you would obviously want to go down to the bottle of water as the smallest unit of measure. But if it's more realistic to be giving out a 6-pack of bottles to a family, then maybe you just want to go to a 6-pack. It depends on which is more logical and efficient for your particular organization. And you can also note you can note other units of measure inside there. So for instance, you could put paper rolls, and then you could use the measure each. I'm not sure if anyone else has anyone tried the chainsaws? I guess not. Okay, so the chainsaws would typically not be a consumable item, so you might want to track them through your system, especially if you're loaning them out or using them. So they will typically have a serial number on them. That you'll notice on the template that there is no column for a serial number. But the way that we can get around that is to enter the serial numbers directly into the description. So chainsaw still 18-inch, serial number 12345, and the next one 1234556, etc., etc. And just record the quantity as 1. So that means in the system, it will be recorded and maintained as 1. And if you're actually looking at my screen, you can see here that we've done exactly that. We've got BGANs, all exactly the same item, but they have a different serial number. And that's because they have a significant monetary value to them, and they're not for consumption, they're for reuse, which is why we want to track them through the system and back again. So we've already hit 10 o'clock. And a few glitches. I don't know how everybody went with that. Is there anyone having any problems, or have most of the
I can no
questions been
longer see the list of items.
the list of items?
Yeah, to be entered.
Yeah, ideally it needs to be downloaded from the library.
Ah,
Jeff did have it on screen, but the idea was for people to download it from the library and then work from there.
Yeah.
Jeff so is online to change people's status if required.
Yeah, okay. Now give everyone another 5 minutes.
Sorry, I'm looking at the library. I'm not quite sure where to look for that in the library.
So if you are in the library at the top, it says, let me just bring it back up so that everyone can see it. It's this one here.
Your screen is very small. What does it say? Could you read it, please?
I've just put it in the chat. My screen is small, really?
It's about 0.4. Yeah. On my screen.
Huh. That's interesting.
It's all right on this screen, Jeff. I can read all of them.
Okay. It's showing as full screen on Zoom, and I'm running a 19-inch monitor. So.
Oh well, I'm on a little laptop, so that's.
Aha. Right. Okay.
I'm going to come and get your system, and then I'll be right.
Jeff, this is Cheryl. When I click on anything to download, I don't get anything. It goes to my hard drive looking for a document that I may have stored there.
So you are inside this system and you're clicking the download link here?
Yeah.
I'm
So
not sure what.
This Barbados one, December 1, right? And I click download.
Yep.
It goes to my PC.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
So then if
the documents are stored where?
I don't know. It depends on where your system is set up.
Okay.
It's most likely going to be either in My Documents, or it will be in a personal folder that you've configured.
Or check and see if it ain't gone to downloads.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other thing you can do, I don't know what browser you're using, but usually browsers will indicate where the file is. There's either a download arrow or something like this, and you can just click it directly.
Yeah, so obviously they've stored them somewhere, and I'm not sure where they are. Okay.
The two most likely places are either in Documents or in Downloads.
Okay, thanks.
When you download it, your system might show a little thing that says it's downloaded and have a little drop down arrow that you can click on, and an option might be show in folder. Everybody's system is different, but that's something.
Yeah, okay, but they should be there somewhere. Okay, I'll have to try to figure out where they are. Thanks.
Another thing I noticed is when I click in the library on Word documents to filter just on Word documents, it's the only thing in the list, which is really good.
So what our development team are going to do, it probably won't help us for the purposes of this exercise, but what they're going to do is make all of the training, all of the warehouses available to everyone for training purposes. So if you want to revisit this after the exercises, then you can do that, and you can download the templates, and you should have all of the warehouses inside there. So they say they've done it. So you should, in theory, be able to download a new template from any time now, and you'll see all your organizations, all the registered organizations, and the warehouses. Don't worry about doing it now if you're already pressing on, but yeah, it's actually it's good that you are picking up these issues, because you're seeing exactly what the people see who are on the ground. And as you can imagine, when you've got a 20-foot container coming in and it's got all this stuff in it, and it's 40 degrees outside, and you're hot and tired, and you haven't been to bed for 3 days, it's not amusing to get these boxes that come in with just a minimal list like this, or even worse, no list at all. And then to have to try and sift through this stuff and figure it out. And if you want to see what a visual of that looks like, then you might want to go over and have a talk to our friends at the Red Cross, who have all kinds of interesting items that were donated by people for the response to the hurricane a little bit earlier this year. And, you know, there are some interesting items. I can, from my own experience, I've seen ice trays being delivered to countries that have no power and no refrigerators. So they're a particularly useful item. We see instances where, unfortunately, companies or organizations use emergencies as a place to get rid of surplus stock that is either expired or too close to expiry to be of any use. It fills a need for them on their books, but it doesn't solve a problem for anyone at the other end. And it's very common to get all kinds of loose items inside a container. So different sizes and different quantities. So you can see that the manpower required to solve unsolicited goods is a big problem. But that's actually only part of the exercise. The real exercise is to get you comfortable using the template, and so that you understand some of the limitations of the template. So what I think we'll do is stop right there, and maybe we'll ask to have a look at some of your templates and see how we're going. Because otherwise I fear that we're going to run out of time rapidly. So I'll stop sharing my screen. And I'll ask for volunteers to perhaps show theirs. Of course, no one's going to volunteer, so maybe I actually better start asking somebody. I don't know. Anne, have you got anything on yours that, well, would you like to share your screen and show us what you've come up with?
I will volunteer. Okay. I think I can share my screen. Share screen. You cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing. Okay. So somebody who's sharing at the moment has to stop share before I can share.
I think Jeff, sorry for interrupting. Sharice has shared her screen, so Anne probably can share yours after Sharice.
All right, I could stop sharing. Sorry, I'm trying to.
It's okay. It's fine. It's
already.
It doesn't really matter. So the point is that we can now look at these and discuss them collectively and sort of see what the thought process was and discuss the logic. You might need to make it. You might need to make it a little larger than that, though.
Okay. How about now? Better?
Yeah, I can read it. I'm not sure how
A little bit
some of the
better.
others.
Can it go any bigger? Yeah, that's better.
Okay, so let's see what have we got. Okay, let's forget the owner agency and the facility name for now. So we've chosen food security, bottles of water, packs of 6, packs, no weight, unit volume 1,
Peter?
no price, and quantity 2400. Okay, so that's okay. It's as I said, there's no right or wrong. I think the best way of saying this would be to say there is more accurate and less accurate, if you like. Really, there is, as I say, many ways of skinning that cat. So food security generally relates just to food. Water normally comes under wash, but as I said, it doesn't matter. We'll just sort of go through it. And bottles of water, you've listed them as packs of 6, which means that by putting bottles of water packs of 6, then you're basically saying your smallest unit is a pack, which means it's 6 bottles of water, right?
Yes.
So 6 bottles of water at 1 kilo each would be 6 kilos for your unit weight.
Oh, okay. I see the
Because
mistake.
you've chosen pack. Okay, if you had chosen individual bottle of water, then it would obviously be a kilo. Unit volume would be the same sort of extension. So a packet of 6 liters would be it's like 0.006 of a cubic meter. The unit price, you don't know, but you could use you could use a rule of thumb and say, right, I think a bottle of water here in the shop costs me around about a Bayesian dollar, therefore $2 Bayesian for a kilo, which means $1 US for a liter. That's the sort of reasoning you would want to be using when you're in a hurry. You don't have time to go looking up the Massey store website and saying, how much is it? It's going to be that. You just want to get something down on paper so that you can move on to the next line. Because if you were to enter the whole list, it would have been 20 items, right?
Right.
Logistics for the stills, yeah, good. You could. So the way you've approached it right there is you've put all of the chainsaws down, without serial numbers, which means that you have elected to treat those as a consumable item. What that means for you as the owner agency is that you are prepared to lose those chainsaws because there will be no way of tracking an individual one. So as I was saying before, if it's a capital item like a laptop or a car or something that you want to trace, then you would need to split that out into 10 lines and put a serial number against each chainsaw. But otherwise,
Can
it's
I
fine.
ask a question, please?
Yeah, go ahead, Judy.
the water, back at the water, we said there were 6 packs. So in the quantity, would it be 24, or would we have to say how much packs, or how many 6 packs would make up that 24?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good point. Yes. So there are 2,400 individual bottles. So you would have to divide it by 6.
Okay, thank you.
And that would give you a number of packs. But that's also very common and very easy to make mistake. So yeah, and you can see straight away that changes the number significantly, because if you have 2,400 times 6, that is significantly different to 2,400 divided by 6.
I think it depends on how the person wants to interpret it or read it per
That's
organization.
right. That's right.
So I was trained persons want to know each single bottle, not just the packs. It's best way have it in the parentheses there, packs of 6.
Yep.
But then again, everybody interprets it.
If you got your unit as packs, if you use your units as bottles, then I could understand you put the 24. But if you put it as packs, then the quantity would be referring to how many packs.
As a person who will be packing it in the warehouse or on the board, they want to know if it's in a pack or individual. If they say it's bottles, they might interpret it as single bottles, but a person who's packing would say it's like, okay, they have it as in packs of 6. Again, it's how to interpret it.
Yeah. So this is a very easy one to sort of use as an example, because it happens all the time. This is what we see regularly, is water being the quantity of water being incorrectly entered, and it causes issues later on as we try and figure out how much water we actually do have. Boxes of diapers. Okay, that's fine. Number 4 box. Okay. So as a kind of a general rule of thumb, it's useful if when you make the entries, if you use the biggest category first and then go down to greater granularity. And what I mean by that is, if you have, for instance, say a car, then you might say car, the next category down would be, well, what sort of car is it? Toyota, a Nissan, or a Mitsubishi. So then you might go car, Toyota, and then the next category down in the tree would be, what model is it? Well, it's probably a Hilux pickup. So then you're down to the smallest category, and you could be even more granular and put color, etc. in there. But it's generally quicker to search if you start at the base, if you like, and then work your way down. It just makes it easier for you, because everything in the filter at the top will then fall out alphabetically. So if you use car, Mitsubishi, car, Toyota, car, Nissan, and then you've got maybe Mitsubishi, I don't know what the Mitsubishi Pajeros. In the Toyotas, you might have Hiluxes and Land Cruisers, etc., etc. And so you can very quickly filter if you start with the biggest category first and then work your way down. There's no right or wrong, as I say. This is what you're focusing on, is being able to move your items quickly, which means being able to get your items into the system quickly and accept that you are going to have a huge percentage of errors. And when I say a huge percentage, this is not the same sort of system as a small supermarket.
Did we just lose Jeffrey's audio?
Yeah.
He'll be back. I'm sure he'll reconnect and come back on. So why we just wait for him? Yeah, I mean, sometimes when you're not sure what to put down in the weights and the measures, I just cheat and go to Amazon, and find something similar, and you'll find quite often there the shipping dimensions and weights are there. Or what we found for certainly for St. Vincent is almost 90% of the stuff came from Massey's. And we are talking to Massey's to get copies of their basic food and sanitary items, because we've organized with them where we can actually issue vouchers and distribute food and items from vouchers from Massey's direct. But Massey's also have an e-shopping website, and if you click on that, you can also quickly see weights and dimensions as well. And I'll just chase Jeff, see if he got back on.
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, my system just completely dropped out there.
We forgive you. Many wouldn't, but we will.
Ah, excellent. Okay, righto. Perhaps we can stop sharing that one and have a look at Anne's.
Mine's not nearly as interesting, but okay. I didn't download the document at first, so okay, let's see where have I got it.
Yeah.
I think it's this.
So we'll just do one more in the interest of time. I'm just aware that the clock is ticking really fast.
Yeah, mine's
We've got a long way to go.
So yeah, I mean, and a lot of this repeats too. I think, like you said, the 10 chainsaws, you should put them on 10 lines and put a serial number somewhere. I forget where you said to put the serial number.
So I'll show you once we've finished having a chat about this. But basically what you do is you just create one record for each of the items. And after chainsaws, I just put SN, and then I just put the number of the serial number. And then, of course, the quantity becomes 1 because it's a unique item.
Okay, and the item description.
Yep.
Sounds like the item description is best, just put as much information in there as you can, so that even if you get the rest wrong, at least they got a clue.
That's dead right. That's dead right. So the more information you put in there and the more organized it is, then the easier it is for people to either A, clean up later, or B, use directly. So that's kind of why I've said if you can start with a tree structure and work to increasing levels of granularity, it makes much easier to filter, much faster to filter, because that's when, if you look to the top, to the headers where you've got your drop-down boxes, the drop-down boxes will then automatically organize things by alphabetical order, or if not automatically, then you can filter by alphabetical order, and then you can just scroll straight to chainsaws and you'll be able to see where they all are.
Is that what you mean? You put the word chainsaw first so that when they're looking, they'll see chainsaw? And
yep. So I would be inclined to go chainsaw because that's obviously the broadest category. Then I would go for the manufacturer because that's the second broadest category. And then I would put 18-inch because that's the length of the chain bar. And there are various lengths of chain bars. So yeah. So that's a perfect example of, I can't remember there's an actual name for that type of classification, but it's also the way that the military organizations work as well. They start with the biggest ticket item and then work their way down to the most detailed item. And that's exactly right. So that's precisely what you'll do. You call it each. The weight and size of each, and then you've recorded it as a separate item. And because you've recorded it as a separate item with its own serial number, that means that within the system, you can now track it back and forth. So it's a non-consumable item, and you can send it from warehouse A to warehouse B and back again. And that's actually what we do a lot with our items, because the majority of the items that WFP and CDEMA are using in the Caribbean are not consumable items. They are primarily logistics support items. The other items that come in are the unsolicited goods, and they tend to be consumable items. The vast majority of them are. Another trap that you want to absolutely avoid is mixed pallets. So it's pretty common to see pallets which have a couple of chainsaws, a couple of bottles of bleach, and 10 boxes of diapers on them, plus some baby food. Again, you need to break it down unless your intention is to never break it down and to move everything according to that pallet, which is highly unlikely. So take your pallet and divide it out at this point and save someone the problems of having to do it later on is really the answer. There is one other thing that I sort of throw out there. I saw on Sharice's one that she had baby formula.
Yeah.
Anything for babies, and we specifically don't try and avoid handling dehydrated baby food. So if it comes in a jar already mixed, that's fine. But if you have to mix it with water, then I'd be very cautious about including that, because you can't guarantee what the quality of the water is going to be. That's just the caution for you. It's just an aside. It's got nothing to do with the system, really. Okay, fantastic. Does anyone have any questions on this part of it? Okay, so as I said, the developers have just made a change to the template for the training purposes. In the actual live site, you'll only be able to see the warehouses that you have goods in when you're trying to do uploads. But for the purposes of this exercise, then you'll be able to see everyone else's warehouse, and you can practice this in your own time at home, in work groups or with your colleagues. That's no problem. But we'll move on now. So we will assume that you've done all your templates, you've uploaded your stuff, and there is now stock in all of the warehouses that you are wanting to move. Now, again, for the purposes of the next part of the exercise, we have relaxed the rules so that you can actually move other people's items as well. And since most of you haven't gone through the exercise, we haven't had time to upload items on behalf of all of you, then you're welcome to use whatever items that you find in there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go on to an SRF. Ideally, we wanted you to be able to work with the items that you had created here, and we would have uploaded for you. But given there's a lot of organizations and time is not our friend, we will forego that. And we'll just go straight on to the system. Am I sharing? I don't think I'm sharing, am I? Sorry about that. So we've reached this point where we've got items up in the system, and just to give you a working example, you can see that we've got 4 BGANs here, and each one has a different serial number. So this is exactly how we get around it. The status shows it's available. There's a weight and a value for each of them. You can see we've got 2 different types. We've got 5 pens and the big ones. You can't actually see what the prices are. The prices are hidden from the general public. Right, so the next phase is that we would like to move some of these items because we have a burning need to get them from, say, let's say WFP, and we're sending stuff out to the Red Cross and to DEM. So there's the warehouses you can use. So I hope everyone can remember how to go through creating a service request. Here is the service request link, which you find always on the main page. That will open up your SRF, and you can start filling it all in. So again, we'll kind of give you 20, we're at 10:35 now. We'll give you 20, 25 minutes to fill this in and see how you go. And if anyone has any issues here, then again, we will be open to both chat and live questions. So over to you guys.
I don't know how, but when I'm selecting stock and I look at the sector at the top, I get some naughty words in the drop down list. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. I
You
don't
get what,
recognize-
sorry?
I can't say it out loud. I don't know what populates that drop down. Search sector item unit in the stock where you're picking stock. What populates that sector item unit drop down? It's really odd what I'm looking at.
I'm not sure. Which stock are you trying to pick?
Some kind of well, there's only one item of stock that comes up, but never mind. It's just a mystery. I'm just going to ignore that. search box.
You
that
you
pops
you could choose a
up.
different warehouse, maybe. I'm not sure. This is a training site, but wouldn't have thought there was any oddball items in there. It is possible.
I won't share my screen, thanks. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, I mean, if you're selecting WFP stock, then in principle it should be. There shouldn't be anything strange there.
Should we click submit?
Yep.
So I'm just checking myself when I go to select stock, and I don't see any unpleasant words at this end. I'm looking hard.
Hmm.
I don't know what populates that drop down when you click on search.
It should be the actual stock holdings in the system.
The search will be based on what was in somebody's laptop before. But
Some of it was not, and I've never taught some of that stuff, but never mind, don't worry.
So because what will happen is that all of the items that were pre-existing will be now available to you because we've had to enable it. So as part of the training, we are breaking the rules, if you like. You would normally only be able to see your own stock, which was part of the idea. Was the flow of the practical exercises would have been that you completed the template, we would have uploaded it on your behalf, and then you would have had the opportunity of moving exactly what you uploaded from point A to B amongst the 5 warehouses. But because there's something like 10 organizations, we're just going to go with opening up the warehouses and letting you all choose items that are already existing. But again, that said, I'm not really sure of any, I'm not aware of anything that's a little bit sketchy there, but we will have a look. Apologies if there is.
yeah, like I said, I mean, I've quickly looked and I've gone to select stock and I've gone to the search bar, and it mainly holds whatever was in your search bar before.
My search bar, you mean in the CLS system? That was
Yeah,
the first search. That's the first time I've ever searched. And
so if I quickly, oh dear.
I wouldn't spend any time on it, just to let you know.
So if I quickly go here, you can sort of see print where I've been searching for.
Mine didn't look like that, sorry.
I'm just actually running right through the entire list now just to see what is there. Huh. I've just been for a quick sift through the list and I don't see anything
Mystery. Just leave it as a mystery.
odd. Yeah, all right, we'll leave it as a mystery. But in principle, basically what it does is it it will give you a filtered list of all of the items that belong to your agency. So if you recall, Kevin's first sessions were that for the system to exist, there needs to be a trinity of three things. There needs to be a facility to hold the items in, there needs to be the items themselves, and there needs to be an organization. And the organization has a subset, which is yourselves, the users that belong to an organization. So whether it's BDF, Bango, the Red Cross, DEM, you as the owner of those items have the right to move those items, but you don't have the right to move other people's items or to take other people's items. Even though they may have exactly the same item, you only have that. You would normally, in a live situation, only have access to the live item, your own organization's items. That's a little bit tricky because it can be a bit difficult for the people on the ground out in the warehouses to segregate various organizations' items and keep them segregated. But in principle, that's what would happen, is that even in a single warehouse, there would be areas allocated per organization, and they are held sacred. So the items that go in there belong to that organization. For the purposes of this exercise, though, as I said, the rules are being completely broken. So you have the ability to move around WFP stuff, DEM stuff, CDEMA stuff. So feel free. And yeah. How did you go with the submit? Did it submit okay? Perfect. So what should happen is if you do make a little error, or you omit something in the SRF, and I can tell you that the most common error is to omit the date that you would like stuff either moved or stored. And what happens is there will be a box comes up around that field, and it will flash red until you fix it. So you won't be left scratching your head trying to figure out what you've done wrong. Maybe I can actually show that. I guess you've probably figured out for by now that you have to populate the from organization before you get a stock list. And that's exactly the reason is exactly that, is that in principle, you will only get the stock list that's associated with this organization. And the users would also be listed based on this organization. This is where we normally have issues, when things fall over. Shall leave it loose and then we'll see what happens. Okay, so if I try and submit that. Okay, it's gone through, and I think it's because we have taken off all the controls.
I submitted mine as well.
Okay. All right, great. Anyone having any issues, or everybody's happy with what they've done? Okay, fantastic. It's quicker than I'd hoped. Okay, so the idea is that, well, I hope you can see that the system, the service request form itself is based on the items that have previously been uploaded, which is why we did the templating exercise first. So an administrator would have uploaded what you'd done, or would have reviewed it and then uploaded it. And then once it's available inside the system, then you have the ability to move your own organization stock from point A to point B as you choose. And the system is based on validation rules. So it's going to check where you want to move the items from. And that's going to basically create a series of filters. So by selecting the country, we'll give you all the warehouses in that country. And then you can pick the warehouse that you want from that country, where you're sending it to, and it doesn't have to be in the same country you're in. It could easily be in one of the other CARICOM nations. And that will start the filtering process. Then based on, say we select the WFP warehouse, or say we select the CDEMA warehouse, for example, inside the CDEMA warehouse, they have WFP items, they have items belonging to CDEMA themselves, and they have items on behalf of DEM. So that means that people who have control of that warehouse would be able to choose items from amongst those, but the users from a particular organization at the user and super user level can only pick the items that they have belonging to their registered organization, the organization they registered with at the start. By picking a name and an organization, it will enable you to start selecting stock. So again, it's all filtered. The stock is filtered based on the organization that you originally registered with. That basically sets your rights, your ability, your permissions to move stuff from A to B. Just a quick recap, cold chain, we have these cold chain and dangerous goods fields as a potential extension to the system, but the reality is that no one is really geared up to manage this. Cold chain requires some very specialized equipment, particularly for vaccines and things that require to be at -20 or even -8 for the entire time. Dangerous goods is a can of worms, so it requires special training, possibly PPE, and it's pretty limited on what you can and can't move. For our intents and purposes, dangerous goods is pretty much limited to things like bleach and fuels, petrol, oil, and lubricants. Anything more hazardous than that, and we really can't manage it. And we're stretched to manage those types of items, particularly when it comes to airframes. Not so bad when we're talking about ships and trucks, but anything to do with aircraft, then we are very limited in dangerous goods. And we have the carriers, which Kevin mentioned. These are completely optional fields. They're just there in case you are going offshore, in which case you would typically use a third-party agent and a carrier to move your goods for you. So there are any number of customs agents around who specialize in these services, and you just put down the one that you're going to use if you have that information at hand. If you don't have it, or you're just delivering locally, you wouldn't even bother with this. If you have supporting information that you might want to upload, perhaps you have pictures of the items, or perhaps you have the material safety data sheet, which goes with dangerous goods or even non-dangerous goods in a lot of cases. You can upload that. You could upload invoices if you have them, or what's really good is if you can upload a copy of the original waybill and things like that. They make life a lot easier as well, but again, non-essential items. So the key items are these four, obviously having to select some items to put into the system, and a date or dates. The system doubles purpose. It serves as both a request for storage and a request for transportation, or a combination of both. So some people may only want to move stuff from one wharf to another wharf. They don't require storage. They're coming straight down to collect it, which was in fact the case in the Dorian response. Maybe you don't want storage. Maybe you just want to make use of the shipping that's being put on, in which case it's just a transportation request. And that is about it for service requests. Does anyone have any questions or things that they would like to raise regarding these?
No, it looks pretty simple, even though when I tried to do it, it wasn't so simple. But I guess I need to practice.
I think once you kind of follow the flow, then you will find that when you go to use it in anger, it's actually pretty straightforward. And of course, the more you use it, the easier it becomes. But hopefully you can see that the system is actually fairly simple. It's not based on having to have an understanding of computer languages or complex forms or multiple stages. It's just a one form fits all kind of affair. It covers both storage and shipping or transport. It has additional little fields that can be left optional or filled in if you have further information. And the flow is basically that flow that we talked about before, which flows from the Trinity, which Kevin raised on day one, which is you have to have we have to have at least 2 registered facilities, because obviously we're moving from A to B, means that both facilities need to be in the system. You have to have organizations which own both stock and have associated users, and you have to have some stock put in there. Whether you put it in at the same time you're requesting to move it, or whether you have the stock pre-existing, it doesn't really matter. Okay, so once again, you have the ability to revisit this in your own time. I'd encourage you to do that, just so you get familiar with the process. And even if you don't, I think you've kind of got enough of a snapshot of what happens that if we were to have a hurricane in January, then you would be okay to step up and start using the system. It doesn't actually take long once you've got people who are sitting there and using the system on a regular basis to come up to speed with it. And we typically have people able to use the system more or less unsupervised after a week. Okay.
Yes, I suspect it takes practice. Yeah. Thank you.
It does, and that is actually one of the issues with all of the system, is that typically the national disaster officers and all of your own organizations are not in the business of routine operations, except for in times of emergency. So if you don't have an emergency for 3 years, then the staff using the system and getting familiar with it, that can be a little light because people move on and people get rusty and the system might evolve. So there is a plan in CDEMA for continuous improvement, well, continuous training, if you like. So they already have in their work plan, their annual work plan has space for workshops, and there will be people permanently assigned to the SRFPs, which are Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, and Antigua. So there will be staff and rotational training available. So the knowledge won't die. The information you pick up here will be reinforced across the years as time goes on. Okay, I'm going to stop talking on that one for now. And the last one we wanted to have a quick look at was the, am I still sharing? No, I'm still sharing. Was the reports. So what I'd like you to do is to download the stock report. You can filter it for Barbados, and then you can run some filters at the top. And so let's see if you can, actually, I'm not sure if the values will come through for everybody. You could pull down, let's make the exercise, pull down the stock report and filter it out for WFP in all of Barbados, and then do a summary of the value of the items that WFP has. Or CDEMA, you can pick whichever organization you want, but just filter by an organization and see if you can figure out how to summarize the stock. And it'll give you, that's actually a fairly straightforward exercise, maybe 10 minutes for that. So yeah, it's 11:02. Let's call it quits by, let's make it 11:15.
So we're going back to the CLS stock sheet.
Yeah, yep. So on the main system, on the stock sheet, you'll see the export, the stock report. So you can go ahead and download that and filter it for Barbados, and then filter it by WP or CDEMA or DEM, whichever one you want. And then use that information to just say, as a fairly straightforward exercise, if you can summarize the right values. I think value should come through, but maybe it's hidden.
Hi, Jeffrey, I don't have that facility. I'm only seeing download template.
Download template. Okay. All right.
I'm the same. I think it's because our access level is.
Yes. Yeah. That's the catch-all with having a system that's based on groups and permissions, right? Okay. So what I'll do is I'll download the template and I'll put it in the chat, and you guys can all download it from there and filter from there, because actually all we're missing is the one step. So let me hopefully there won't be any bad words in it. Right. Just bear with me a second. Okay, I think everyone should have that available to them now. So go ahead and you can go ahead and try and work with that. If anyone can't actually access that file, then it should be stock export 8. If anybody can't access it, then let me know.
Mine downloaded, okay.
Okay, great. So the first thing that you should notice about that is it's exactly the same template as the blank template for doing uploads. And there's a reason for that. It's because the idea is to try and to build comfort amongst new users or relatively inexperienced users so that there's a familiar interface. So all of the forms are the same way. The delivery note, the waybill, the packing list, they all have the same format, the same layout, just so that people get used to the way things look. It doesn't get confusing in the way that if you see commercial invoices and waybills and things, there can be a dozen different formats, and actually figuring out the information can be a little bit time consuming in itself. You're not seeing the file, Tabitha, in the chat?
Yeah, I can see the file, but I don't have the other options that are on your screen.
The other options? Oh, you mean these?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. It's because you don't have permissions, so that's why I've put the file in the chat, so you can download the same file and work directly with it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, now I finally opened it. What was the instructions again? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So basically, what you have is a download of everything that's in stock in the system at the moment. So first of all, we want to filter by Barbados, and then we want to filter by your choice of any organization in Barbados. I think there's the DEM, CDEMA and WFP have stock in their warehouses. So choose one of those organizations, filter their information out, and see if you can derive the value of the stock that is listed. Typically, we're not too concerned about the value, but obviously the donors, they really are, and the government as well. The host governments are normally quite interested in knowing what the value of the items coming in, particularly when they try and do customs reconciliations and things at the end of it. Okay, so I think we'll stop it there. And you can sort of follow along with me if you want to. So I don't know which agency you chose to use. Let's, for argument's sake, we choose Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. So the first thing you should notice is that I'm actually using the filter at the top now, and you can see straight away that it is actually populated. So the filter is related to the Excel table. It's not related to anything that the system does. It's a Microsoft Excel feature. So then we've only got Barbados. Okay, great. It shows us where we've got our items. And it doesn't give us much in the way of pricing, but it does give us something. Okay, so if we wanted to know the pricing, I guess everyone sort of knows how to run an auto sum on it. And there you go, you'd be able to report back to your donors that in Barbados and the various warehouses sitting around, CDEMA has got $61,000 worth of emergency assets. So that's a very simple sort of example of the information that can be derived. If you are actually in operations, then you can get a lot more information. Not so much from this report, because this is a static report, but in the other report, which is the stock transfer report, that's really where the heart of it all happens. And it's where most of the confusion comes and all the rest. So people want to see the status of their deliveries. They want to know where items have got to, how many items are outstanding, and whether items have been lost or not. So all of that information can be found in the stock transfer report. So it makes it quite a useful tool, and it means that a particular shipment, an individual lot, an individual truck can be traced back to see who authorized the shipment, what the original service request number was, and who made the request to start the whole thing rolling, which makes it quite a useful thing. Mainly if stuff gets lost, or you've got a shelter manager jumping up and down and saying, "Oh, I didn't get my stuff," and you go, "Well, we sent it yesterday," and then you find out the truck's broken down in the middle of the road somewhere in the middle of nowhere. So I think we'll stop there.
What did I do wrong? That's because I have over $100,000 worth of goods. What did I do wrong? Did I just add everything, or I didn't filter anything out?
I don't know that you did do anything wrong. Which organization did you choose?
Ah, okay. Maybe that's what I didn't do. I just added everything because it was Barbados, so I didn't filter.
Yeah, so you can do that. You could just say right for everybody. So let's have a bit of a check. I think I don't know what we'll come up with. What did you say? $100,000 or something?
A little
there you
over.
go. Oh, it's $1 million actually.
Was it $1 million? Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I'm way off. $1 million, yeah.
Yeah, it's because WFP is holding quite a lot of vehicles in Barbados in readiness for deployment at the moment, which is what throws that, which skews it significantly to the right. So I think we've got $700,000 worth of vehicles roughly ready to go. But if you just wanted,
understood the instruction, because I did mine both by owner agency and location. So
okay,
I filtered the owner agency and I used one location.
yeah, that's okay. So the key takeaways from this exercise, or this little exercise, are that you can see that the filters are active now, whereas before, when you were doing the upload templates, they had nothing in them. Now you can see that they are active and they can be used to derive useful information for the organization. And you can, in the same way as we were talking about descriptions, you can get more and more granular. So maybe you want to see all of Barbados. Maybe you want to see all of the Caribbean. Maybe you just want to see what DEM has, or maybe you want to see what CDEMA has. Or most likely you will just be wanting to see what your particular organization has and where it's currently located. And you can derive that by, again, as you say, checking the, choosing your own agency and then looking in the various warehouses to see what you've got. And then based on that decision, or based on that information, you might say, right, well, I want to move some of those air mattresses. I want to take them from warehouse A, and I want to deliver them to St. Lucia, to the warehouse over there, for example. So this part of the system is all about decision support. It's also about reporting back to the donors so that they get the warm fuzzies about what's happened to the assets that they've funded, where you say, okay, we've moved, we've got this here, we've got this sitting over here, and it's about to be distributed to the beneficiaries at location A, B, and C, with that kind of information. So it's a fairly basic layout. And we can't really get more. We can't do more of a dashboard than that, because everyone's reporting requirements vary wildly. So there's no magic bullet that can create fancy graphs and pivot tables and all the rest of it for you. The user is empowered to have the data set that they need, but the actual deriving of the report from that, or reports from that data, is up to the individuals. So, and it depends on the tools you have at hand. Personally, I just stay with Excel, but I know that some people are increasingly moving towards things like Power BI and other tools that can be used to use complex data sets. Again, that's up to yourselves and the policies of your individual organizations. So I think we'll stop there. If anyone has any questions or things that they would like to pick up on a one-to-one, then you're more than welcome to contact Kevin or ourselves directly. And we'd be happy to walk through any of the things that you're having problems with in slow time. Okay, I'm not sure if Kevin is around, but it's back to the controller. Yep, Kevin is there. Okay. All right, thanks all. I hope it was useful, and I apologize for the hiccups we had with permissions, but I guess you can also see the power of the permissions is that they control what can and can't be done. Thanks. Back to you, Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Yes, good session. I think it was great that participants got to troubleshoot and physically by themselves see how to input data and what obstacles can happen, and getting a good feel of the system and in peacetime, because it's important to note that whereas right now we're doing it in a very controlled manner, when it's on the field and when it's a post-disaster situation, it's going to be much more hectic, and you're not going to have as much free time to troubleshoot. So it's critical that we right now will be able to enter data and request using the SRFs. So that's good that we got to do that. And also it was good that you got some added value with respect to how to enter items, and like capital items or big ticket items, how is it critical that you can split them up, especially if you want to put serial numbers, because I know for government agencies, if you are transferring or if you are sending items to other local or district agencies, you most likely will want that item back. So it's good to have those serial numbers in the system. So let's say you do lend a chainsaw for post-disaster debris removal or etc., you can get back that exact same chainsaw by tracking the serial number. So that's added value to it. So yeah, I think throughout the day we learned a lot about that and about what's the best way to do things, even with the weights, the volumes, and seeing that or knowing that so many different units of measure come in, that is critical that the person uploading makes everything homogeneous and makes it at a good level, that even if after you upload and whoever has to handle the stock afterwards, they are abreast and they are able to work more efficiently. So yeah, I think today was a very informative session on that. So, all right. So what I'm going to do is, that was a quick wrap up. So I'm just going to share my screen. All right, so we are here and I'm seeing a raised hand. Carl?
Oh, hi, Kevin. Yeah, I don't know if I can quickly share my screen. We were quickly, when Jeff and I were talking, we were quickly going to sort of wait until the end and then sort of show some of the changes that as we sort of try and go towards phase 2. So some of you sort of said, it's hard to choose. So if we look at this trial system that we set up for CDEMA, what we've done on the next version is we've gone to a more Amazon style approach of shopping, where you can quickly see the items that you want, select it, put it either in a wish list or your SRF that you completed earlier. And that way it's easier for people to find things and easier for people to say, let me buy this and ship this. This is an open ERP system, so it has a few more rules to follow, which is why it's harder than the basic one we've shown you. but it does have a lot of flexibility and a lot of other uses that we can show people. As you sort of see here, we can create it for different countries. We can also change the languages into different languages as people need it. And if we go into the sort of inventory, it's much more user intuitive as people are used to online shopping. And this is the way we would sort of like to go in the future. So you can sort of put something in if you want in the search. And then that way, if it's been entered, then you can find something. So that was a sort of very quick overview of how we sort of wanted to show that we do have other options in the pipeline to make it more user-friendly. And as you move away towards logistics and towards actual procurement and warehouse management, we can do more in that respect. Over, Kevin, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Carl, for that. And yes, that goes back to my presentation on day one, which was last week, Wednesday, where we spoke about this emergency logistics module, which we are working with right now. But in the pipeline, there is a much broader enterprise resource planning module that can facilitate numerous different alternatives, numerous different capabilities, such as comprehensive warehousing, dealing with needs lists, dealing with, if you want, e-commerce and procurement matters. So that is the next, I would say, component of the CLS, which is still in development, but should be ready sometime next year. So that's what Carl has showed you. But for now, we are dealing with the response module, the emergency logistics module. Okay. So I was speaking about today and wrapping up today. I know it's 11:28, but we were, yeah. So here we are, day 4. We accomplished this, the practical session. We move on to the Q&A. So I know Jeff did a Q&A, but any final questions for us before we officially wrap up and I speak about Friday? Tabitha? So is yours.
Just wanted to know if the extended sessions would be recorded and uploaded on YouTube.
Gavin?
Rhonda, yeah.
Yes. Our IT, they have been recording, and hopefully we should be able to have them up. I don't know if today, before the end of the day, but probably by tomorrow. So what I would do is send a link. Once we have those up, I will send a link to the participants. So I hope I have all the email addresses for the persons that are on. Okay. That answers your question, Tabitha?
I meant the extended sessions that haven't taken place as yet.
The ones for next week? Yeah, we'll be doing the same thing as well.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be recording those as well.
Okay, great. Any more questions before? All right. So that brings us to the close of the essential sessions. What I would do is show you the agenda for Friday's session, which will be the first session for the extended session. So essentially, we learned how to do SRFs. We learned to import and upload stock. But after you send that SRF, you submit that SRF, there needs to be a process of approval and of approving requests, making consignments, making packages and deliveries. So that is the next day. So on Friday, that's what we will be doing. It'll be a very intense, informative session on Friday where I will present on those aspects, approving requests, consignments, packages, and delivery, and also demonstrating that and those capabilities. So that will be for Friday. That should be the beginning of the extended sessions. And so the extended sessions will be completed next week. And in essence, it will follow a very similar structure to what we did in the essential sessions. And it will cover these aspects, and it would show you that at different permissions, at different levels, you can do different things. And it will really show you the flow, because each day will flow into each other. And you can see that quote unquote chain of logistics that goes into it, into management of relief items. So that will be very good for Friday. And the link will remain the same. Everything will remain the same. Everyone is invited, and pretty much Friday is just another day. Just the content will be more extended and on these particular items. So everything will remain the same. So there's no big adjustment to really cater for, even though it's one is essential and one is extended. So what I will do by the end of the day, I will send the agenda to Ms. Farley, and she could disseminate it to the rest of the team and the participants. So with that, any further comments from Rhonda or from any of the colleagues before we officially end?
Okay, I give my voice. I just want to say thank you, Kevin, for this first, and Jeff and team for this first part of the training. Unfortunately, I had an emergency, a death in my family, so I had missed the second day of the training, and I may miss another day next week. But I really hope that all the organizations that are participating will be able to join us. I see our numbers have dropped a little, but we still have each organization represented. So you can reach out to your colleagues. I don't know if you all have decided, then it would be easier to have one. But for the organizations who, we're not saying all of the participants, if you can just reach out to them in terms, just let them know we'll be continuing on Friday and ending on the 10th. This is the 3rd, so just for 1 week. And then the training will be finished. But thank you all so very much for participating and engaging in the discussion. And thank you, Kevin. Sorry for throwing you in the deep end last week. But thank you. That's all from me.
Okay. No problem, Rhonda. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so on behalf of everyone, I would like to thank, I'm seeing a mic open, Sergeant Alistair. Okay, so yeah, I'd like to thank all the participants for coming out today and going through the processes with the practical, doing the teething, learning how to input data, learning how to do the SRFs, and just understanding how and what sort of mechanisms you're trying to instill and to get everyone to utilize, because we know how critical relief management is and how critical your jobs are as practitioners in this field. So thank you for coming out. I hope you see the value of everything, the lessons learned, even just beyond the system in terms of at post-disaster operations and response. So I'm hoping it was a fruitful session, and I look forward to the extended sessions and being able to converse more with you all and speak more about relief and disaster operations with you also. With that, on behalf of my agency and WFP and Ministry of Labor, thank you again and see you on Friday at 9 a.m. Great. Cheers.
Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.